What's up, Front Yard family? Jay here with my extremely handsome friend Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the fantasy value for the upcoming season with Amari Cooper. Josh, let's just go ahead and get right into it. What do you like for Amari Cooper for this upcoming season?
Well, Jay, there are a lot of positives. A lot of positives to say about him as a player. Now, we'll get into a situation in a bit, but Cooper's just been so freaking consistent since he entered the league in 2015. He produces solid numbers for his team and for fantasy football pretty much every year. And since 2015, he actually has the 8th most receiving yards out of any player in the NFL. He's also played with some other really good wide receivers on his team. I'm thinking back to the Oakland Raider years. He played with Michael Crabtree, and he's played with CeeDee Lamb the last couple seasons. But the only time we've seen him be a top 10 fantasy football wide receiver was back in 2019 when he was the true number 1 for the Dallas Cowboys. So when I first saw the trade to the Browns, I was like, this isn't really a bad situation. Not necessarily. Cooper will be the go-to guy for Baker Mayfield in this offense. I know that didn't really work out for Odell Beckham, but Landry was there. So he had another really good receiver there. And Cooper is just a different wide receiver than Odell. But we know what the Browns did, and without making this a Deshaun Watson conversation, I'm currently projecting Jacoby Brissett to be the starter for the Browns in 2022. And Brissett's a fine quarterback. He can manage games, no offense, decently, but he's simply just not great for fantasy football. But we'll get to that in a minute. Regardless, I really like that Amari Cooper's still the 100% the number 1 wide receiver on his team. And here's some good news. Dak Prescott only played in 4.5 games during the 2020 season, and Cooper was still productive that year. He finished as the wide receiver 15 in PPR leagues, and he played with the likes of Andy Dalton and Ben DiNucci most of the year.
Ben DiNucci.
Yeah. So Cooper just has shown the ability to put up solid numbers with poor quarterback play. However, I'm still pretty nervous for this upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about his consistency. Over 1,000 yards in 5 of his 7 seasons. He's had no less than 5 touchdowns in a single season. 4 in the past 4 of the 5 years. Past 4 of the past 5 years, he's had 7 or more. He's one of the best route runners in the entire NFL. I mean, he can win on the field in a ton of different ways. And like you said, he's the undisputed wide receiver 1 on this team. Now, granted, he's going to get additional attention from the defense because of that, but I think he'll make up for that with volume. The whole situation, which right now is a positive if Deshaun Watson plays this season, but that can also run into a negative. We'll get there in a second. But if Watson's back sooner than later, then he could really turn into a value this season. Amari Cooper, that is. We really just don't know. Some people saying 4 to 6 games. They're saying report came out today that he might sue the NFL if they suspend him for the full year. Who knows what happens? Is he on the commissioner's exempt list during that period? So there's just so many question marks, and we'll roll that into the negatives. What are some things that you're not too fond of for Amari Cooper this upcoming season?
Well, I mean, right now, and we've touched on it quite a bit, but the biggest problem is that I do project Jacoby Brissett to be the starting quarterback for the Browns this season, and I'm nervous for all the pass-catching options, and that includes Amari Cooper. So Jacoby Brissett, he's had some opportunities in the past few seasons. Last year with the Dolphins and a couple of years with the Colts, and he just did not support fantasy wide receivers. Brissett was the starter for the Colts in 2017 and 2019, and T.Y. Hilton had 2 of the worst years of his career leading up to that point. And if we just look at last year, the games Brissett started or really played the majority of the game would be weeks 2 through 5 and week 9. Waddle averaged 10.9 PPR fantasy points per game that week, which would put him in the 40s points per game wise for wide receivers. Brissett also played a half game and got benched in week 10. Waddle got 10.1 fantasy points that game. But Jay, Waddle finishes the season as the wide receiver 13 overall and set the record for a rookie by the most catches ever for a rookie. All right, that's pretty crazy. So he had a fantastic season.
One of the best touchdown dances in the entire NFL.
Waddle. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But Jacoby Brissett did not give him many waddles. Let's put it that way. You know what I'm saying? Jacoby Brissett just does not support fantasy wide receivers. Now, if the Browns defense was bad, I might be able to make an argument that they'll be down in games and Amari will be force-fed targets, but that's just not the case. The Browns have a good defense and they want to run the football a lot. Brissett will simply be a game manager for this team. I just think that Amari Cooper could disappear some games when the Browns don't need to catch up. And I just don't see much upside either. I currently have him projected for 117 targets, 73 receptions, 917 receiving yards, and 6 TDs, which would place Cooper as my wide receiver 33 for this upcoming season.
You are currently projecting Jacoby Brissett as the starter the entire year. That's what those numbers are?
Okay. I am. And I know there's still a lot of uncertainty around Deshaun Watson, but that's how I view the situation right now.
Well, and like you said, this is a run first team, a run second team, run third team. They love to run the ball. They got 2 very capable running backs. And if Brissett is under center, I expect him to lean on the run game even more. But last season, as much as I love Amari Cooper, he did not have a great season. Wide receiver 27 in a points per game basis. It was his first year since 2017 that he failed to get 1,000 reception yards. He only had 3 games over 20 points. Granted, he only played in 15 games, but even so, just he didn't have those big blow-up games that we like to see from him. Next up, we're going to go ahead and go into a name game, and basically what that is I've looked up 5 players that are currently going around Amari Cooper's ADP. According to 4for4, his ADP is wide receiver 23 right now. Who are you taking, Amon St. Brown or Amari Cooper?
Wide receiver 23, just real fast. That is too high, guys. That is too high in my mind. But hey, Deshaun Watson plays, like we said. But Amon St. Brown or Amari Cooper? That's a great question. I like that Amari Cooper's the number 1 for his team. Amon-Ra has a lot of mouths to feed in that Detroit Lions offense, and they're not necessarily a great offense either. It's not one we're projecting for a ton of fantasy points all around. They have Jamison Williams. They brought in DJ Chark. DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkins are going to get a lot of targets. I like Amon-Ra. I think he doesn't. I know I said Cooper doesn't have a ton of upside, but I'd rather have Cooper still.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is pretty easy for me. While Amon-Ra helped me win some fantasy championships last year, that's when people are beating the dead horse. But he was the only guy that was left on the field. There's going to be a lot more mouths to feed, and I don't trust Jared Goff to be able to feed all those mouths. So it's Amari Cooper here, and it's pretty easy for me. Next one up is Allen Robinson or Amari Cooper.
This one's easy. It's definitely Allen Robinson. I have him projected as wide receiver 24. And like we were saying with Amon-Ra St. Brown, not a lot of, there's too many mouths to feed in that offense. There are some mouths to feed in this Rams offense, but I project the Rams offense to be a lot better. One of the best in the NFL, a lot of pass attempts. Allen Robinson's very talented. I would definitely take Allen Robinson over him.
Yep. I think Allen Robinson is going to have a bounce back year. He's somebody who I'm targeting in pretty much every draft I'm in where he's going with you there. And the next one up, Juju Smith-Schuster in Kansas City or Cooper.
He would be my wide receiver 32. So 1 spot ahead of Amari Cooper, but Juju has so much more upside being in that Chiefs offense. And he could be the wide receiver 1. Well, not the number 1 pass catcher because that's going to be Kelsey, but I'm going to take Juju over Amari Cooper.
Yeah, I'm going to go Juju as well. And last but not least, Chris Godwin or Amari Cooper.
Chris Godwin, we don't know. He could be ready for week 1. He could start the year on the pup, so he could miss a few games. So having said that, if he's playing and out there with Tom Brady, his upside is immense for where he is getting drafted. He would be drafted as a top 20 wide receiver easily if we knew he was starting week 1. I'd rather have Chris Godwin on my team.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, like I just said previously, give me the guy who we know the question marks aren't his quarterback. We know Tom Brady's going to be the quarterback. Chris Godwin, from everything we've heard, it sounds like worst case, he'll be placed on the pup and he'll miss 6 games. At this value, give me Chris Godwin all day. That's going to be it for the fantasy outlook for Amari Cooper. Make sure you give the video a like, subscribe to Front Yard Fantasy on YouTube. We're going to have a lot more fantasy outlook videos continue to come as the season continues to creep along.